Welcome to Catholic Truth. Many people have been asking us about video games. Can Catholics play video games? Is it wrong? Is it immoral? And there are different opinions out there on this, from the very extreme that you can't play any video games to anything is okay and everything in between. But in this video, we want to talk about, can Catholics play video games, and is it okay? And if it is, are there parameters around that? What is good? What is bad? How can we discern the difference and be good as Catholics? Because many people know that I have said that I've played video games my whole life, and so they know that I play video games and they've heard other things, so they're like, what are your thoughts on it? So, without further ado, here are my thoughts on it. Hello everyone, my name is Bryan Mercier, president of Catholic Truth, and we're here to help you to know, love, and live your Catholic faith. Check out our show description notes below if you would like to follow us on social media, support our ministry, or bring us to your church or parish to speak. Video games are not all bad. In fact, they're actually very good many times. Many people don't realize that video games were originally used, especially Nintendo specifically, started out making video games trying to make people smarter. That was the purpose of it. It was to develop different parts of your brain. And even today, they still have many games that are called like Big Brain Academy, which work the different areas of your brain with different mathematical skills, quantifying skills, and different things like that. They also have a lot of hand-eye coordination. They have a lot of problem solving. That's why you'll see in games like Legend of Zelda or different things like that, where you have to have these puzzles, and you can't advance into the game unless you solve the puzzles first. And some of them, you have to sit back and think for a while. It actually makes you go outside of yourself. I've gone to bed in the past, growing up, still thinking about these puzzles. I was like, there's no way to solve this puzzle. And I'm literally trying to get outside the box to solve the problem. And my brain is working overtime. And it's helped too, because I had many problems writing my first book. I actually was about to give up, and I just started problem solving, thinking way outside of the box like I would do in video games, and eventually I solved the problem. So there are many good things. And in fact, even many militaries use video games to train their soldiers in different things like that and different skills. So it can be good, but it can also be bad. So that's why in this video, we're going to talk about the difference and the necessity of discernment, and really the principles of discernment to know what's good, to know what's bad, and how to know the in-betweens. I think a lot of this comes down to your age, maturity, how mature you are, how mature the game is, the purpose of your playing, the purpose of the game, the time you spend on it, and different things like that. I think all of these will help to make a decision of whether it's moral or immoral to play, or if it's good or bad, or could be better. It could be played in a better way. Perhaps it's good to play video games, or at least not a bad thing. It's okay to take some, time to yourself. Some people choose to watch TV. Some people choose to go for a run. Some people choose to read a book. We all need time away from work and school and different things like that to come down and recuperate, to rest, to relax, to just take some time for ourselves. And video games can be a good time for that. It can be acceptable. However, if we're spending exuberant amounts of time in the video game, then we're spending hours online, as some kids do today. They have the headsets and they're playing with their friends, and there's 6 people on each team, and they're just playing for hours and hours every single day. Well, that's problematic. The game's not bad, but the way you're playing it is. And then there's the discernment of the different games themselves. Obviously, some games are not a problem at all, like Super Mario Brothers, like Pac-Man, like Space Invaders. These are just simple, fun games that don't really have any problematic elements in them. And then, of course, you have other games which have violence or may have other issues like that are not issues. Like, for example, there's stylized games versus realistic games. You have Super Smash Brothers, which is a very violent game, but it's all stylized. It's like King of the Mountain, where you're just trying to throw the other person off any way you can, punching, kicking, but it's kid-like, it's cartoony, it's not a problem. Whereas you have these same things in video games today, which are very realistic, very gory. They're becoming, extremely gory, to a problematic state, using God's name in vain almost every other word. Sometimes these games are very realistic. I think of games like BioShock, for example. You have the stylized violence of Super Smash Brothers, and then you have BioShock, which is not only immoral, it's just unnecessarily violent and gory. You also could think of the games Street Fighter versus, say, Mortal Kombat. Street Fighter, you're fighting each other. It's street fighting, but it's stylized, and you're just trying to learn the moves and become better than the other person. Whereas Mortal Kombat is extremely gory. It kind of started the whole genre of video games into the gore, ripping people's heads off. And that's the least of the problems, throwing people down onto spikes until they die. And they have all these finishing moves where you kill them at the end. So, I mean, there's a clear difference between Street Fighter, which is just a fun game, versus Mortal Kombat, which can be really, I mean, for me, growing up playing Mortal Kombat, it's how I got out my anger. I wanted to take out a lot of my anger issues in this game, beating people, ripping their heads off, different things like that. It could all be taken out in a game, and it wasn't good in the way that I was doing it, and it wasn't feeding me or making me better or bringing me closer to God, and it was having the opposite effect, so I eventually stopped playing that game altogether. You also might think of stylized games like Metroid, which is shooting and aliens and different things like that, versus, say, Resident Evil, or games like Halo. It's very violent, but you're shooting aliens. You're not, shooting other people. You're shooting aliens. You're defending the Earth. So I don't see a problem with that. Call of Duty is it's more realistic. Battlefield's even more realistic. But these are games that are based on war, and they're based on, defending their country or whatnot. So, it's a realistic game. So I don't see problems with those either. Even though they're realistic, they aren't problematic because they're more like real life, and they don't have, you are killing people, but it's war. It's real. It's kind of like life. I would caution against playing overly violent and especially gory video games often. If that's all you're playing, that's probably problematic, because it kind of does something to your psyche. And, if you're always, especially today, I mean, the old days, all the Tomb Raider games, they were very stylized. Today, you're sniping people. You're coming up and knifing people from behind, and you see the gore, you see the blood, you hear it. I mean, it's just like, it's different. It starts to affect you. Even The Last of Us is pretty violent, but again, it's against aliens, and you're defending, or I should say zombies, and you're just trying to survive. It's not necessarily a bad game, but if that's all you're playing all the time, kind of starts to affect the psyche a little bit, or it can. So we want discernment. Another thing we need to discern, again, is the time that we play. These games aren't necessarily bad, but if we're spending so much time playing these games, then they are bad, and sometimes they become gravely sinful, like World of Warcraft. Fine game, for the most part, I guess. Like Skyrim, but The Sims, SimCity, all of these games aren't necessarily bad, but they're rabbit holes. Minecraft, how many kids play countless ridiculous amounts of hours of Minecraft during the week? Every day, it's a rabbit hole, and they're wasting their life away playing this game. That's not good. It ceases to be rest and recuperation. It ceases to be just a fun little thing, and it becomes like your life. World of Warcraft, I know a kid who died because he wouldn't go to the bathroom, and he played for 24 straight hours because he was so addicted that he couldn't walk away. And that's known for being a very addictive game. When I taught in Catholic schools, I had boys skipping school to play that game all day. Obviously, that would be problematic. And you say, oh, well, I don't play all day. I only play 2 or 3 hours a day. That's still a problem. If you play 2 or 3 hours, on a Saturday, okay. If you've worked all week and you're tired and you just want to relax, fine. But you shouldn't be playing 2 to 3 hours every day, because then that's problematic, especially if you're shirking your chores, if you're shirking your duties. You're not doing your responsibilities. You're falling away from work. I know I played Pokemon Go for a long time, and I knew people I have to be at a dentist appointment. I have to be at work in 5 minutes. But they can wait, because they were so addicted to this game that they wanted to put the game first, and they shirked their responsibilities. They made other people wait, and it was wrong. Anytime we're doing these things that we're not supposed to do, and avoiding the things that we are supposed to do, it's wrong. And the games might not necessarily be bad, but the way we play them is, and they need to change. I used to get so mad when my mom used to ask me to take out the trash. I'm like, I'm in the middle of a game, Mom, when I could have just pressed the pause button and left, took out the trash, and come back. Again, anytime we're not doing what we're supposed to do, we're avoiding our chores, our house is getting messy, but we're playing video games, we're not doing the job or the work that we're supposed to do, stop it. You need to cut back on the video games heavily, do the things you're supposed to do first, and then play in spare time. And for the record, you might want to even consider fasting on video games, like 2 days a week. I've typically done this for a lot of my life, adult life. I fast for 2 days a week, usually on Wednesdays and Fridays. If I find myself getting addicted, I give it up, and I pray more during those days because I find myself wanting to play and I can't. I'm disciplining myself to do what's right, and I make sure to do my chores, and I make sure to do those things I need to do so that I can stay temperate. practicing temperance, practicing playing in moderation. That's what we need to do. Next, we want to avoid immoral games or playing immorally in the games, like GTA. Many people play GTA. You could just race, and that's fine. But then, as you know, you can get in cars with prostitutes and do other things that you shouldn't be doing. At least if you call yourself a Catholic or a Christian, you should not be playing the game that way. Same thing with BioShock. Besides the fact that it's ridiculously gory and needlessly gory, there are things like the girls. You're not sure if it's a girl or robots in the game. And one voice is telling you they're little girls, don't kill them. And the other one is saying it's robots, it's okay. They're just, on the outside, they look like a girl, but on the inside, they're robots. So you're actually not sure in the beginning. And you have to make a choice. And the choice is, well, if you kill them, I'll give you more money. But if you save them, you won't get anything for saving them, but I'll pay you off in the end. And I've asked people, I was like, hey, what did you do? Did you harvest the girls or did you, wait for the reward at the end? They're like, no, I harvested them all. I'm like, that's horrible. What if they were little girls? Like, we should play, for the most part, this isn't a hard and fast rule, but for the most part, we should play the video games as if we were in real life. Try to play morally. At least I try to play morally in life. Like for Assassin's Creed, another overly violent game, debatably good, depending on how you play it. I would not just go around killing people because why would I do that? I wouldn't do that in real life. So why go around just knifing people, stabbing people, coming off balconies with knives and killing two people through the back of my neck, different things like that? No, why? I mean, sure, if you have to defend yourself and someone's trying to kill you, okay, maybe that's justifiable. But the point is, like morally, like BioShock, I did not kill those girls, and I tried to live that morally because I wouldn't do that in real life. I'm not going to do that in the game. GTA, I'm not going to do that in the back of a car. I'm not going to do that in real life, so I'm not going to do it in the game. There's no reason why we should be perverted and looking at perverted things or watching sexual things or anything like that we wouldn't be doing in life. And there are games that have a lot of sexual stuff that can turn us on. They should be avoided if we are going to go down that route. And then, of course, you get to the games of magic and deities and gods and things like that, which are not necessarily bad, but again, it depends on the game. For example, like God of War, it's kind of fiction, it's a fun game. You're not worshiping gods or anything. You're not calling on gods. It's probably fine. Versus, or like Zelda or Skyrim, there's mystical goddesses and gods throughout the lands, so-called, and you have to pray at a statue, and it just says push the button and pray, and you get something. I don't even know what. Or Zelda, it says go find this, and it says pray, and you go to the statue and you talk to it and it tells you what to do. It's like those are stylized games. They're not realistic to life. And I think it was actually Father Chad Rippinger who I watched one of his videos, and he said, if it corresponds to real life, stay away from it, But if it's stylized like that, it's fine. Whereas, like, for example, Dungeons and Dragons, people have always said stay away from that game. Like in the original video games, like that you play in the arcades, they actually had music from witch covens, like actual satanic music in the background of the games. And also they have certain spells and certain gods and different things like that. So obviously a game like that would need to be avoided. People generally say avoid Dungeons and Dragons because of all of that, but that's not the only ones. There's definitely RPGs where you attach yourself to deities or you have to worship a certain deity. And there's also spells or chants or something that are actually true to real life. They've taken real life things and they've put them in the game. You definitely want to stay away from things like that. Obviously anything demonic or, sexual or anything like that, even things like Uncharted. I loved Uncharted 4. I was playing that at 3 a.m. trying to stay awake while I watched my baby who refused to sleep, and I couldn't stay awake, so I'd play video games to keep me awake. And I loved that game. I love Tomb Raider style games. They just adventure, exploring, things like that. But every other word was God's name in vain, Jesus' name in vain, and it just got too much, and I had to turn the game off. And I've turned several games off, either because they were disgustingly immoral or because they keep taking God's name in vain. I mean, how much do we need to watch them offend our God before we turn it off? Is God more important or is the game more important? If we just put up with all this stuff all the time, then the games are more important. And I admit, it's harder and harder to find good games today because they're becoming so more immoral. A lot of the older games are fine, but a lot of today's games are getting more difficult to find. Even Far Cry, like the first 45 minutes of Far Cry 4 was really gory and really bad. And I was going to turn off that game and not play it anymore. But it got better after that, and I ended up getting into a civil war, and it was just more about a war, one side versus the other. That game could be debatable too, but the bottom line is you want to try and play as morally as possible. So in short, think about your age. Certain people at different ages should not be playing certain games. A lot of kids are playing games they should not be playing because they're too young. And parents, you need to be knowing what your kids are playing. You need to be up to date on what your kids are playing. My mom knew everything I was playing and watching to make sure it was responsible for me. I had a woman come into Blockbuster when I used to work there, and she rented this game called BMX XX. And she's like, oh, I want to get this game for my kid. I said, well, actually, it's called XXX for a reason, triple X. There's bad stuff at the end. And when you do certain tricks, bad stuff comes up on the screen. And the lady says, oh, little Johnny, this man says that the game is bad. He's like, Mom, I don't care. She said, well, okay. And she got him the game. Are you serious? Start parenting. Jesus said, if you lead one of these little kids astray, it's better for you to tie a huge rock, a millstone around your neck and throw yourself into the ocean than to lead a little kid astray immorally. We need to protect our children in what they watch and in what they play. And it's our duty to find out and keep up on it, even if they hate us for it. So I hope some of these principles have helped you to discern how to play video games or how to play them in moderation, how to play them properly. I mean, this can be discerned for music. This could be the same discernment for movies. I mean, people call themselves Catholics and they watched Game of Thrones. I mean, literally pornography. And they watched it. And kind of worse than pornography. Some of those scenes were absolutely uncalled for and terrible. And yet we call ourselves Catholics. Sex in the City. I know many Catholics who watch that. They call it their guilty pleasure. If it's guilty, then it's wrong. Don't call it pleasure. We shouldn't be doing it. Same thing with 50 Shades of Grey. How many Catholics tried to justify that book? I mean, we could take the principles of us loving God and putting them toward other forms of entertainment as well. It's either God and you're all in for him, or you're not. Jesus said you must hate the world if you want to be his disciple. But sometimes we love the world. Sometimes we love the things of this world. We love the sensuality. We love the violence. We love different things like that. And we need to hate it, Jesus said. Not just dislike it. We need to hate the things of the world. We need to hate evil. And that's hard sometimes. So I really hope that this has helped you with just general principles. And if you have any further questions, of course, any specific questions, specific games, feel free to put it in the comment section below. I'd be happy to do my best to answer them. I don't know all games, but I hope these general principles will help you just to discern in general, down the line, for future, for all forms of entertainment. And feel free to share this video too, because so many people need to see that. We need to know moral guidelines, which don't seem to be given out by the church or people anymore that deeply. And there are some people with good videos on this topic, so you can check those out. Feel free to like, share, subscribe if you haven't been here before, and put a comment down below. Thanks for watching. God bless.